Today, as part of BCMG's 20 for 20 fundraising campaign, I'm going to be talking to Shiori Usui about composing for young musicians and for family and young audiences. Shiori was BCMG's Apprentice Composer-in-Residence in 2013, in which time she composed the immersive piece Deep and Crack Up for our family concert. More recently, Shiori composed The Silent Forest for BCMG musicians and an ensemble of young musicians from Awards for Young Musicians. Welcome, Shiori.
Hello, thank you.
Well,
nice to be here.
Well, thank you for being with us, Shiori. It's lovely to talk to you this morning. I wonder if you could start by telling me a little bit about the piece that you composed for the Awards for Young Musicians Day.
Yes, so I composed a piece called The Silent Forest, which was inspired by the field recording of the bird songs before and after deforestation. And I was particularly struck by the effect of the deforestation, which you cannot really see so clearly when you compare the images of the forest between before and after the deforestation, but you can clearly hear it as the bird songs became more sparse and there was not so much high frequency sound. So yeah, I was really struck by it and decided to compose a piece based on that field recordings.
And how did you go from that initial idea into your piece of music?
So I first listened to the recordings and then imagined what kind of forest I wanted to make. So I then went on to listening to lots of bird songs in Britain, and I made up an imaginary forest for myself to begin with. And then I gradually made up a story of birds flying away one by one after the deforestation, and all these frequencies kept changing.
Yeah, thank you. Just interested, did the idea for this forest come to you first, or was it in response, I need to find something that will engage young people, or was it an idea that you'd already had? What sort of came first, really, there?
Yeah, so I had a call from Stefan from BCMG, and he asked me if I wanted to write a piece for this opportunity, and I said yes. and then I wanted to find a meeting point between myself as a composer and the young musicians to work on together. So for me, the issue of climate change and environmental crisis are something that concern me a lot, because I have very young children. Yes. And I worry about their future. And also I feel that maybe many young musicians, it is very relevant for them because it seems to have become more and more of big issue that affects their lives and their future if we don't take care of it. So I just felt like it's a good meeting point for us in terms of the theme of the piece, and that's where I started.
Yeah, and I guess with Greta Thunberg and her protests, that young people have become really galvanised into environmental issues in the last year or two.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So once you had this initial idea and you'd created your forest and you were thinking about the birds, how did you approach composing for young musicians?
Yes, so first of all, I needed to think about what kind of skills the young musicians have for their instruments. And then, as I said just now, I thought about the shared interests between myself and the young musicians for our musical exploration. And then I wanted to write something that also empowers them. I thought of the way that they can have a kind of autonomy in the piece. And then also something fun for them to play.
Yes, I think that fun part is really, really important, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so you were composing both for BCMG musicians and for the AYM musicians.
Yeah.
How did you see the different roles of the BCMG musicians and the young musicians in the piece?
Yes, it's interesting to think about that because in a way it's easy to imagine that the professional musicians guiding the young musicians in terms of the techniques and confidence as well in terms of playing in public because they had to practice this new piece together in one day and present it in front of a big audience in the concert hall. So I saw the professional musicians of BCMG for guide through in terms of techniques and confidence. And then, but on the other hand, during the piece, there are some fun elements. For example, some musicians have to play balloons and they have to release them and things like that. And for that, I thought maybe potentially young musicians might be more willing to do that.
Yes.
Because it's something that unusual and maybe they have less
inhibitions.
Yeah.
That's really interesting you say that, Shiori, because we've done a few pieces now with young people and playing newly commissioned contemporary music, and when they're asked to do strange things with their instruments, rattle the keys, blow down, this kind of thing, there can be this kind of awkward sort of giggle. But that has always been stopped by when the BCMG musicians, the professional musicians, do it really, really seriously. And that sort of chimes in exactly what you're saying, that when you see that professional musician doing those strange things with utter seriousness, the children get carried along with that, I find. Is that your experience?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you've talked about, knowing about the abilities of the young musicians when composing for them. That's really important to get that balance between achievability and challenge. What else do you feel like you need to think about when composing for young musicians?
First and foremost, I wanted the piece to be something that is fun to play, and then I wanted the piece to be something relevant for them. So that's the two most important thing for me. And then another important thing is that something that they feel that they have it's their own music rather than something that they just play off from the sheet.
Yes, so they feel some ownership. Feel some ownership in it.
Sorry?
They feel some ownership in the piece.
Exactly. Yeah. So for that, I used some structured improvisation section, and in that section, they can choose how they want to phrase the bard songs and how repetitive they want to play and things like that. And then towards the end of the music, there is a section which 2 or 3 young musicians play as they walk out the concert hall, and they again have they have a chance to play as solos, and they can walk and stop in auditorium, and they can basically improvise with the materials that I created.
And how do you feel the young people responded to the improvisatory elements of the piece?
I think most of the people enjoyed it. Maybe it was a little bit challenging for some who are not used to improvisation, but I tried to support them by giving notes and pitches and ideas for phrasing and things. So I hope it was okay for them.
I think it's so important that young people get exposed to improvisation from an early age. It can become very distant from performing, I think. And I know you're a really big improviser, and is that at the sort of back of your mind? You know, wanting young people to kind of put their toes into this other world a little bit.
Yes, as well. Yes, I think so. It's just something that I enjoy a lot, and it's a good opportunity to find yourself. In terms of how you want to express things and your sound, color, and
Yes, really agree with you on that. I think it's so important that young people learn to improvise as they're learning their skills on their instrument.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just
and
think.
It was also from practical point of view, because we only had a day to practice together as an orchestra. So this improvisational element was kind of. I hope it worked as a section that kind of freed their mind up a little bit, rather than making them feel like they have to get every note right in one day.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, that's really important. I was going to ask you about that. You know, when you knew it had to be rehearsed in one day and performed at the end of that day, how did that affect your thinking about the piece?
So it was important that there is a fun element. Again, I say this again, but I didn't want them to be stressed. And so for me, it was important that there are some elements that they can laugh about when they do it, you know, and have fun. And then also I made sure that they have some space to just use their imagination and be free with how they want to phrase bird songs and how they want to play, rather than following each single note. Because when I write out notes, I tend to be very detailed. So there are I made sure that there are some contrasts within the piece.
I think that came across really brilliantly. There was a great sense of fun I felt throughout the rehearsal and throughout the day. So I think that really definitely worked. You know, just obviously there was time restrictions and all sorts of things. You know, was there anything else that was particularly challenging about the commission or challenging about composing for young people generally?
I find it really fun, actually. I think that maybe the most difficult thing was not being able to meet them and maybe before I started to compose.
Yes.
So if I had chance to know them better, then maybe I would have been able to write the music that even more suitable for them. But I generally find it really fun to work with young people. I think it's just because they they have lots of possibilities and open-mindedness. I think that's what I love about.
Yes, yeah, me too. And it's of course not only were you meeting the orchestra for the first time that day, they were all meeting each other for the first time that day as well.
That's something very unique about this occasion.
So the Awards for Young Musicians is a wonderful organisation that gives grants to young people who may be in an economic situation that makes it difficult for them to afford instruments and lessons and travel. So they give out the awards each year, and then they bring all the young people together for a celebration day. And the Silent Forest was composed for that celebration day.
Yes.
So there was all sorts of, nobody had met each other really. So it was quite a challenge to create a piece for that kind of occasion.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great for us to be working with AYM Awards for Young Musicians. I mean, we're really passionate about getting young people playing contemporary music right from really early on in their playing career. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for you, why do you think it's important to get young players to perform contemporary music?
I think that it's important for them to be able to have chances to play contemporary music because they know that there are many different ways of expressions possible, just as there are many different kind of living beings on this planet, and that they can also, so that they can feel like that they can also be composers if they wanted to.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yes, it's them understanding music as a kind of living, breathing art, and a very diverse one as well, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, did you have experiences when you were a child of contemporary music?
Unfortunately, I didn't. No. So I think maybe that's why, especially when I had music history lessons of contemporary music, it really opened up my mind and blew me away, because I didn't know until then that there are so many interesting ideas and sound world and things like that happening. So I grew up mostly listening to Chopin and Beethoven and all these classical canons, and they're really great. But having been in that music history lessons of contemporary music really opened up my mind and ears.
So how did you go from Chopin to the kind of music that you compose today?
I just don't know. It's just after having that history lesson, I just went on to composing on my own music and just being myself, like finding what I wanted to say and what I'm interested and things like that. Just finding myself naturally led me to the kind of music that I compose at the moment.
Yeah, lots of your music, like the Silent Forest, uses found sound, environmental sound. You talk a little bit more about that. I mean, I know you wrote another piece for BCMG called Crack Up, which was for our family concert, and it was all about laughter.
Yeah, so for a long time I was really fascinated by sound of human body because I have eczema, and I really have a bad eczema. So I keep scratching myself, and one day I thought, why not making music out of this sound that I make every day, every single minute. So that's where I started. So there is a piece called From Scratch, which was inspired by my own experience of having eczema, and then I wrote a piece inspired by human laughter, which I analyzed the recordings of my friends laughter and used the harmony and rhythmic elements for the music. And then I wrote a piece called Indigestion, which was inspired by the sound of digestive systems and things like that.
What you don't know, Shiori, is that I played that piece and the film of you talking about the piece to a group of teachers, and I
have to see that.
and they absolutely loved it. And the teacher at the school, I think she now uses it in their topic about digestion in Year 5.
Oh, okay. Brilliant. That's great.
It was such a brilliant example of how to kind of go from found sound into musical sound. I absolutely loved it. So I mean, we're coming to the end of the interview now, I'm Shiori, and I'm just interested to know what you're composing at the moment.
Yes. So I haven't started this project yet, but I'm really interested in making sensory music theater for people with autistic spectrum, and this was inspired by my experience of performing and composing for the theater production called Sound Symphony, which was created for this kind of audience, and it really was energizing and eye-opening experience for me. I just want to keep going with this, and this time with my own project. I can't talk a lot about it yet, but that's something that I'm going to work on from now.
That sounds really exciting. And I mean, do you have time to listen to other people's music? And if you do, what are you listening to at the moment?
I like listening to other people's music, and I'm now hooked on this radio program by Ilan Volkov, and it's called At Home, and he introduces lots of different kinds of music that he has collected over the years, because he's also in lockdown, or he was in the lockdown in Israel. So through him I learned a lot of music.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
And just finally, Shiori, where can people go to listen to your music?
You can come to my website.
Yeah, what's your website?
I have a SoundCloud and page, and also if you Google my name, you can find my own website, and from there it leads to my SoundCloud page as well. So
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Shiori, for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm a massive fan of your music, and I hope you can work with us at BCMG sometime again in the future.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you.